Hello and welcome to Insight. Today we have with us a very special guest. She has been known as an institutional builder and is a renowned academician as well as an administrator. She has also held positions of importance such as being the Vice President of ICCR as well as member of the Governing Board of Association of Indian Institutes. She is considered one of the most important and formidable vice chancellors anywhere in South Asia. She is Professor Sunaina Singh, former Vice Chancellor, Nalanda University. Welcome to Insights on Energy. It is such a proud privilege to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be with you.
You know, one of the most interesting things about you is you're so multifaceted. You've done so many interesting things in your life, and you've been labeled an institutional builder. You know, that really is a fine compliment. And obviously, you know, that nomenclature stuck with you because of the kind of institutions that you've transformed. How did this journey begin?
Well, architecting institutions is it's a big compliment that I have been paid several times by several people. But it's been an interesting journey. It all started when I was the chairperson, Department of English, Osmania University, which had as its affiliated colleges over 200 departments, you know, across Andhra Pradesh and things like that. At that point of time, there was no Telangana. And then I came into Shastri. It's a research organization, a binational research organization. And the then Honorable Minister, Murli Manohar Joshi, had just asked for a binational structure because one president should be from India and the next should be from Canada. This is with the Canadian studies, Shastri Indo-Canadian studies. And I was the first woman president. I was in the executive council before that, and IIM Bangalore professor was the president, the first binational, and then I came as the first woman president. But that said it all, because I thought that we need to look at research from a different viewpoint. The lens has to change. We cannot just think about PhDs. We must have research clusters. We must have interdisciplinary research. So what I did at that point of time was to bring in about 90 institutions, 45 from India and about 30 who signed up. So I was actually leading a team of vice chancellors, IIM directors, IIT directors. I brought in all the NALSAs, law schools. So dealing with so many egos of directors and vice chancellors at that point of time gave me a very strong base, and it also taught me to be very humble, straightforward and very focused, you know. I thought that we need to look at higher education and research from a different perspective and look at the possibility of twinning programs, co-tutel, you know, faculty from other universities teaching us students online. At that point of time, I'm talking about 2007 or 9, around that time. So I brought in a lot of out-of-the-box ideas, thinking ideas at that point of time, which went down really well with Ministry of Education. And so did the government, and the executive board were very appreciative of the kind of dynamism that I brought in. And that started, you know, the then government invited me, then asked me if I were willing to take up the mantle of newly made Central University, EFLU, where before I was asked, 3 people had declined the position, given the casteist and a very left-dominated, you know, position of EFLU at that point of time. So it's been an interesting journey because I embarked onto a mission of making it very academic, very scholarly. I thought there should be internationalization of education at that point of time. I brought in India studies into it. So I was looking at how Indian knowledge tradition should seamlessly get into the Indian education system.
Absolutely, you nearly stole my second question, which was, you've mentioned EFLU, you've mentioned, these big egos that you were working with, out of the box ideas, going to areas like this, even, in a position of leadership, yet these are difficult areas. What makes it so interesting for me is that you were a woman and you managed this. Within a left ecosystem, none of this could have been easy. So, before I go to Nalanda, which is really a success story, I want to start with EFLU because you brought it up. What were the real challenges that you had to traverse through and come out on the top, considering there was a whole ideological ecosystem against you?
Well, a very interesting question. Thank you. I'm so glad you asked me this. Because that was an extremely challenging journey. But I walked into it with my head held high because I believe that leadership is gender neutral. It had nothing to do with my gender to begin with. It was how I chose to be myself, because I believe in genuine leadership. I believe in being authentic, being yourself. And I dealt with it because I thought that educational institutions should not be corroded with activism, should not be corroded with left ideology. That seemed to be destroying the young minds, Rather than focusing on education and research, the students were more and more focused on how to create problems in the university. And this kind of left mindset generally is due to a few faculty, who've been driving it. At EFLU, I'll give you an example. A research scholar was given a job to be a faculty because he kicked at the Saraswati Murti. And I thought that was unthinkable. It's something that still gives me shivers, I cannot have faculty like this. You cannot run institutions. Students are impressionable minds and we shape the destinies of the students, and we need to bring in scholarship and culture together. Scholarship bereft of culture, it's not scholarship. Then you come a few notches down. So I thought that we need to humanize our students. Character building should be the parameter. So I stood my ground and fought all the issues relentlessly. I did not buckle under pressure. So you should respect your institution. I'm not saying that one should respect a vice chancellor or a head of the, but institutional integrity needs to be upheld. So I worked in that direction. But most importantly, what I did was put the ordinances in place. The ordinances were not there at that point of time. So I worked on the policies, got the statutes done, got the rules and regulations done so that nobody could take advantage of a lack of, rules and regulations and try to put us in docks, because it's not right for the head of the institution to be blackmailed. Because I remember before I joined, there were 3 in charges. There was no regular vice chancellor, and the in charge vice chancellor can always be weaker in that position, because then the demands multiply. So for me, institutional integrity is the most important. So I held on to myself. I did not buckle under pressure.
So that obviously must have been the reason that the present dispensation decided to give you Nalanda University, send you there, say that, look, there's nothing happening here, change it for us. Because like you said, that, the integrity of the institution and your relentless attitude, and, you were talking about, policies and changing rules, and you said it so effortlessly, but I'm sure that also must have required so many challenges.
Absolutely, because you see, when you bring in policies and you work on them, you do realize that institutions these days are driven by activism, more so by scholarship. I firmly believe that institutions should repurpose themselves, should reinvent constantly, because all institutions are expansive. It cannot be static. So then you have to look at what are the new emerging areas, challenges for 21st century younger generation. What are the new emerging areas of scholarship? How do we intellectualize without getting too arrogant about it? How do we look at subjects in a different way without trying to silo them? You know, how do we traverse the road of interdisciplinarity? That was very important for me. So I made research clusters and went beyond the silos there, and I streamlined the schools. You know, when I went, nobody knew what they were supposed to teach because it was supposed to be a humanities university, but you had schools, they just inducted faculty, and some of them didn't know in which area they had to teach. So I thought that was a very absurd situation that I was in, when I tried to streamline the through the academic council and the executive committee. It was a very interesting journey. Difficult, I wouldn't say, challenging, but I think we did some wonderful work and re-established the university in the international fora, because that was the only institution that had some linkages with Ministry of External Affairs.
So Nalanda University, when you took over, it's reported had 40 students.
Yeah.
Barely any infrastructure. Were you working out of porta cabins?
Well, yeah, I did. I stayed in a porta cabin house for a while too. Well, before I came in, I was loud and clear, shouted it as RSS Vice Chancellor, and said, yes, I am. So would you want to do something about it? You know, how do you, because institutional heads have an accountability to themselves too. When we take up a position, I firmly believe that you should provide a transformative leadership. You need to evolve an institution and not devolve it. So how do you build institutions? So Bihar itself was an alien territory for me. It was a difficult territory. This was the first time I was going there. I was pleasantly surprised that the people were over a period of time, they all were very supportive. The local Biharis were very supportive because they saw for the first time an outsider coming into Bihar and trying to rebuild Bihar through an institution such as Nalanda. Of course, I went into porta cabin, 3 classrooms, less than 40. There were about 5 or 6 students in historical studies. There were just 3 master's programs. Hardly anything, a small building that the Chief Minister of Bihar had given to Nalanda University. I was told it was an international university, and I was taken aback. Oh my God, because central universities were doing far better. And I thought, for an international university and the kind of passion that Sushma Swaraj ji had spoken to me about what she wanted from the university. And I aligned so much with her passion and thinking that institutions need to go in a different way, particularly in Nalanda with its illustrious history. And the government was extremely supportive. When I say Sushma Swaraj ji, it was the entire framework of the government who all supported, obviously. And difficult terrain, but I did not lose hope, because I had gone there that 5 years with my mind made up that within the 5 years I shall rebuild the institution to over 90 or over 90%. And when I stepped out of it this summer, 23 summer, I was quite happy with my work, and I walked out with my head held high, because I worked on different fronts, the building infrastructure, from 3 courses to 30 courses. You need to think out of the box because getting faculty to Rajgir to stay,
It's not
most
easy.
faculty would like to be in metropolitan cities because their children are involved. What about their schooling? What about infrastructure, stay for them? The hostels were actually 3 hotels that the university had hired, which had less than 20 rooms or 25 rooms. An institution it's a residential international university without primary infrastructure cannot function. Because whoever I met, the first question thrown at me was, how many students? Correct. Even till I left. Correct. And I've always told them, I wish you were asking me how many courses, because the number of students is equivalent to number of courses. Depends on what courses you're offering. So I thought that a place like that, we should have short programs, we should have capsule programs, we should have certificates, we should have diplomas, along with master's programs. So I increased the number of schools from 3 to went to 6. We opened research centers, BIMSTEC Research Center, Bay of Bengal Research Center, Common Archival Resource Center, which is aligning with the 17 countries, member states who have signed an agreement in support of creation of Nalanda. So I worked in the direction of how to build research centers. Today we have a number of them. We had 6 fellowships from ASEAN countries. Today we have about 50. I followed up with, and I must compliment the Minister External Affairs and his team. They have supported me every time I wrote to them asking for enhancement of scholarships for students from other countries. So from 6, today we have about 50 scholarships. BIMSTEC fellowships about 30, all from BIMSTEC countries. Bhutan fellowships again going up from 2 to 20, and on the rise. I've written for more and they're considering that. Research centers, more schools, master's programs. I personally would get experts, sit with them and draw up the course. We have a world literature program that I'm very proud about because no other university in the country has a course, masters in world literature. I brought in Hindu studies, Sanatan, within bracket, the Sanatan Dharma, and that's a very popular program. And I said, we need to look at our resource pool of knowledge. The Indian knowledge tradition defines India per se, because no other country could boast of this kind of knowledge, unbroken tradition of knowledge that India has. So that's another program I'm very proud, master's program and PhD. I'm very proud about. The third one I'm really very happy about was sustainable management program that I started and aligned it with ecology and environment masters. So there's a master's in ecology and environment studies. It's a MSc program, and MBA in sustainable development and management. That would look at the gamut of connections. All the courses are interdisciplinary. The faculty are interdisciplinary. Then I started a PhD program, and that's again very innovative at that point of time. 2018, I took approval from the governing board because it has 2 facets. One is the external PhD for any retired diplomats or NGO or senior scholars or people with a lot of writing to their credit. If they do apply for PhD, I said we will consider and we'll look at it differently. Correct. And then the regular PhD program. So we had 2 PhD programs. It's a 4-year PhD program with 0 extension. Because I firmly believe if you are serious about your research, you can complete it. You put your head down to your research. And the third important, significant, innovative thing that I brought in here is the supervisors can be from any part of India or overseas, from any of the member countries. They have to be aligned with the subject. They should be. So we make a database of supervisors, and you have an internal supervisor, but you have a main supervisor. So that has enthused a whole lot of people. I received a lot of compliments for that.
As you should, because this is a huge gamut of work for a university that at one point the Chancellor was Dr. Amartya Sen, who pretty much said it was a dead university, you know. So to bring it from there, to bring it alive, and to give it this kind of life, wherein, you know, it was only international university on paper, never in practice, and you brought all these international countries together. You've brought these innovative syllabuses and courses, you know, which is very interesting, because why do you think something like the Hindu studies course would be attractive or needed at this point of time?
Well, we have Buddhist studies, which is a very popular program, given that it's Nalanda. Because see, the ancient Nalanda, if we look at it, the tradition was a Buddhist tradition, the university. But they taught astronomy, astrology, they taught defense studies, they taught health sciences. You know, there were different logic, mathematics. So it was an interdisciplinary courses. You had Vedas, Upanishads, Buddhist philosophy. So seamless combination, and all these are, I thought that there's something for us to learn from that kind of educational paradigm that existed, you know, so many centuries ago.
And was it tough for you to bring it in a largely left-dominated...
Oh, well, you've said it. The left have been after me for quite some time, right? They follow me wherever I go. And they come up with, I don't know, they're very, you know, good at creating letters with complaints, you know, series of. So they share it with everyone. And I stood my ground, because I've always had my held high. Because whichever institution I've gone to, I've never worked for myself. I've worked for the institution. And so it's very important to hold your head high, and you know, your integrity should define you. Initial 2 years, there was a lot of effort, and they thought that there was no residence for me to live, no facilities. But since I had taken up and given my word to Honorable President of India, the then President of India, who had a meeting with me and imposed his faith in me, Pranab Mukherjee ji, I could not give up. I said, if I take up something, I'm not going to step down till I complete my job. I don't withdraw from my responsibilities. So it was a tough time with left, but they're very fond of me. So I understand that. So be it. They still write. They didn't want me to get an extension. They kept writing. But I said that when my term comes to an end, I will walk out gracefully and with as much dignity as I walked in, because I have created an infrastructure with 200 structures, a net zero campus, 13 water bodies, which would translate into 100 acres of water bodies. What our Honorable Prime Minister has been speaking in COPE, the environment, sustainability issues. So I have zero waste, zero carbon emission, energy. I worked in all the directions. So we have a solar farm there, PNG gas pipeline, whichever ministry I went to, they were supportive. Dharmendra Pradhanji then was PNG, Petroleum and Gas Minister. So I wrote to him and I said, there's a pipeline going by Silao and to Gaya. I said, can it be detoured through Nalanda, because I'm creating a net zero campus? And he immediately agreed to do that. And we have a pipeline now, that's a gas pipeline going underground. And this effort of mine has helped nearly 200 villages in and around. And in years to come, we will create surplus energy, Nalanda University, which can be shared with the villagers. We can give energy to the nearby villages. So it's been a very rewarding experience. So how do we humanize institutions? That has been my core principle.
But maybe it was because of this compassionate attitude that you had in humanizing institutions that the left opened up to allow newer ideas to come into Nalanda. I mean, of course, they still write.
They're still right. But see, some of our people are trained, they may call themselves right, but oriented in left kind of communication. So even I tried very hard to get a lot of good people who are sound in scholarship. So I wasn't looking at left or right. I was looking at scholarship building. How do we humanize? I did try to get some good faculty. But that's a challenge the university has to live with for a couple of more years, because infrastructure we do have now. We have housing, a 5-star level housing for faculty that we created there. Hostels are very good for students, but how many people are willing to give up metropolitan cities and go and settle down in Bihar? You know, even the earlier Amartya Sen's you spoke about, the earlier dispensation never lived in Bihar to run the university. They were performing either from Delhi or New York,
So
and
the
they were
only thing-
all over the world with meetings.
So it wouldn't be too wrong to say that the only thing international about the university was Dr. Amartya Sen, maybe, because he was out of the country. But you also, as a woman in a position of leadership, going to a state like Bihar, which most people would commonly look at from the sense of being highly patriarchal, what was your experience?
Bihar. I never thought about myself when I took up the position. Many people asked me, someone else asked me, were you not scared? I said I was scared for my students because they were international, they're coming from all over the world. Their security was very important. Because when they go out, because it's Bihar, all said and done, is a rural area. And across the university you have a lot of fields. And if the students, they might like, because there are no malls there are no cinema theaters, students would love to go for walks and something happens to them. I was more worried about the students rather than about myself, because I came in at a time where after EFLU, I've never thought about myself. So you need to surrender yourself to work. I passionately believe in that.
But with all these letters that were written against you, people wanted you to leave Nalanda, so as to say. Did it not ever demotivate you?
Well, it disappointed me. It does, for a short while. But I have this resilience which I myself cannot describe. I shake it out, I just come out of it after 2 or 3 days. I write down what they have written and I respond to it. And after that, it doesn't matter to me because I know I've been clear and clean. I've worked for the institution, not for myself. And for me, it was more important that Nalanda is about India. It's about Bharat. And that was the first international university in the world. While it was burning down, that's when Oxford came up, Bologna came up. Other institutions came around that time. And that's why we are known as Vishwaguru, because our knowledge tradition was so strong. So for me, my prime objective was how to save the image of Bharat as a knowledge tradition. And we need to do that, So our courses are also defined by that.
That's why all these new courses on world literature, Hindu studies, because it's, the foundation is international.
Yeah. And I firmly believe that universities somewhere must teach the discipline of respect. because we need to respect our culture, we need to respect our resources, we need to respect our knowledge tradition, we need to respect ourselves, and not be so taken up by the Western philosophies or Western way of life.
But, we see this more often than not in a lot of other universities. We've seen certain political ideologies being taken too far. Like you said, there's a lack of respect for the institution itself, We've seen this happen in JNU. Do you think there are certain campus cultures that maybe facilitate this sort of radicalization that we're seeing amongst the youth?
Radicalization is generally encouraged by a certain vested interests. The so-called activism, it's not essential, but students are paid for agitations. I've seen this. I shouldn't be saying it, but the bottles are distributed. They have, one of the suicide at EFLU, they're demanding money, not the family, but the students. And they came up with a list of 20 demands. I said, sorry, I'm not going to relent to a single demand. And I had a lot of people, the activists coming in and, sitting in dharna, and one top leader who recently expired, where this was in Telangana, Andhra and Telangana, is very well known, lot of respect, the activist. He threatened that he would come and sit. I used to live in my apartment. I never stayed or took any facilities from the university. So he threatened that he would come and sit in dharna. I said, you're most welcome. It's the only thing that I could say was that. Was I a little perturbed? Yes, the way universities were going and the way media was supporting it. So I banned the newspapers for 2 years or 3 years while I was there. I said, this is not right. You don't encourage wrong things. Because end of the day, when I brought in rules and said PhD thesis need to be submitted, those of them who had registered 10 years, 8 years earlier, within this framework of time, or they would be cancelled. You will not believe about 200 students submitted their work. Today they are teaching somewhere or the other. So I'm sure they do realize now that they are faculty, that rules are important, regulations are important. But campus cultures are driven by vested interests. The left, activism, whoever wants to take some benefit out of it. And campuses can be cleared very easily. I firmly believe in that. It can be done with rules and regulations, how we bring up higher education norms.
So you would say that, again, order to be brought to campuses like this would be largely dependent on the rules that are applied?
Rules, and also if we give up appeasement politics. Very often the heads buckle under pressure and try to appease the student community or the faculty who are behind them. So this appeasement culture is, if you're true to the core values of the university, what defines a university, what are the core values of each institution. So I generally work on what are the core values of, because different institutions have different core values. Correct. Defined by different cultural ethos or their subjects and disciplines. So we need to work on that and not relent where core values are concerned. It's easily done. That's where I said authentic leadership is important. I believe in that.
So did you see this change even at Nalanda with its high reputation, historical reputation, what you wanted it to be? When you changed the policies, when you implemented the rules, did you see people having more respect for the core values of the institution and what it stood for?
Yes, of course. People do respect, over a period of time you will find that. But a weak leader comes into the institution, they give in to the pressures. Correct. That's where the problems begin. Then it becomes a precedent. I was told in the universities that no, this is a precedent earlier. I said, I will not go by any precedents. I will go by rules and norms, regulations. So even for Net Zero campus here, I brought in a Net Zero committee, and we looked at the gamut of things that can be done in a large campus. So where students are concerned, where courses are concerned, the ordinances clearly need to spell those out. Then it can easily be done. Then there wouldn't be any kind of activism. Students can put across their list of requests if they have, and if they are genuine, I generally give them. But if they're not genuine in their demands and they're deliberately trying to, then I don't relent there.
But how do you then traverse through, like you said, there's like almost activism has a finance background now, wherein, things are being offered, or, you might not know what you are, being an activist against, but there are certain goodies that come with it. How do you traverse that on a campus?
Well, the students over a period of time realize that the head of the institution will not relent. So if you tire them out, I did that. 3 months, fine. Whoever is funding, they fund for a month, or maybe 1.5 months or 3 months. But after that, if they see that there's no solution coming, or there's no appeasement coming from administration, they withdraw. The political groups, the left or whoever, the activists, their attention span is very small. The patience level also is small. Correct. They are more invested in larger issues. So this is one of the things for them. So after a while they back off. That's been my experience. So if they were to agitate for 3 months, so be it. Also one of the things I did at that university was, when I did not relent, but I made the 90% of students come out. They came out in support of what I was doing. And they said, these are not our leaders. This is not how.
Wonderful.
So it was good. So it was good to define institutions. Correct. In the right way.
Absolutely. That's why you're called an institutional builder, because this kind of transformation is rare to see. But I think your experience tells us, from what I've picked up from our discussion, is that, being very true to the job that has been handed to you, to have the integrity to stand by what you've been sent there to do, or, also to be relentless in your pursuit for this excellence. These are things that define leadership. But also, on the other hand, you very casually also said that, leadership is not defined by gender. However, we have, we are a woman strong office here, as you know. We've all done some, interesting work in our lifetimes. But what would you have to say? Because I am pretty sure that as a woman, as an attractive, smart, articulate woman, it probably did not go as a positive. Maybe that brought up more challenges, because people don't easily take strong women.
Yeah, that's about trust deficit. It does happen across, particularly if there's a woman leader. I wear my femininity or my gender on my sleeve. I'm very proud of my gender. However, for a woman leader, it's always very difficult to build trust. People are not too easy to, or not too happy to acknowledge the leadership of a woman. Either you're bracketed as a tough lady or tough woman, or all kinds of things. I don't want to get into that kind of terrain. But on the earlier point, I must say, as a woman leader, I also work towards empowering students and faculty. Give them the autonomy to develop courses, give them the but wherever I found that things were going wrong, I did. because I did streamline it, I did tweak it. So I was very mindful. I may be sitting in my vice chancellor's chambers, but I had my eyes and ears always open. And I would hear different, distinct voices. I would talk to almost everyone, right from gardeners to peons, to students, to faculty. I was always available. I was always on campus. I gave up a lot of other assignments because my focus was, how do you build trust with people? You can only do it with work. But at a higher levels, people don't trust women that much because that they can transform a place. That's something that I still regret, and I hope society changes in that direction, because I believe we need more women leaders, because you get competence along with compassion.
Absolutely.
Where women are concerned. So you know how to balance. So I've been very tough, no nonsense person, but I've always balanced it with compassion. Those who deserve something, they get it, in a multifold fashion. And if something is wrong, then I am a taskmaster. I don't relent.
Let me come to my last question to you, only because we are running out of time. Otherwise, I had 10 more in my head to ask you. But
you've done very well.
No, but women and women. This ecosystem, like you said, the higher you go, maybe the support and trust in a woman being transformative is hard to come by. But women surely understand women's plights more than men do. And I have often, and this might be my experience or this might be a general experience, seen that women are hesitant to lead from the front.
Yeah, you're right. They're hesitant. There's a confidence deficit somewhere because of lack of trust coming from the other direction. But I also believe as women, we should support the other women. So I've always supported, if I've got a woman faculty or 2 or 3 of them or more, I've always supported them, given them the confidence to work, to take lead roles, to groom them to be good leaders. Young faculty, I've always groomed them, to take up challenges and always look at problems in the face and find solutions within the problems. So as women, we need to encourage more women too. That's something that's not happening.
Correct.
Too often.
Correct.
While the world, I generally say, is getting more feminized, because now the world, even the men realize that they need to be compassionate. So that's a feminine trait to begin with. Correct. So somewhere things are getting better in many ways. Some places need to be corrected and to be worked on. But growth and development and rebuilding, repurposing ourselves or institutions is always work in progress. While I've created the foundations of Nalanda, I hope people who take it up next have the courage of conviction with which I worked, and to take it forward without being prejudiced about things, and to develop a new Bharat with our own knowledge tradition while balancing it with the progressive West without aping them. So we need to look at higher education from a new lens, and I'm always a close student of literature, so I try and humanize and at the same time be very clear on the roadmap that you want to create.
Thank you so much, Sunaina ji. It's been so enlightening to know about your journey, not just with Nalanda, but before that and as a woman in a leadership position. I think you've really hit the nail on the head by saying that really a woman brings compassion to the table, therefore she can humanize and achieve her goals just the way she sets her roadmap out. Thank you so much, Sunaina ji. It was a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you. So nice of you. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I don't think I've done the interview in a professional manner. It was just speaking from my heart about the work that I've done.
Well, I
Thank
think
you.
I
Thank
think
you.
we've got a lot more than we thought we would. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Professor Sunaina Singh, also known as the institutional builder. Her formidable work with Nalanda University, amongst many other institutions, is a testimony to what a woman in a leadership position with integrity, courage, and conviction can do. Thank you for watching. Until next time.